Okay, so I've been planning on putting in a cable railing system for our deck for a while, and as I looked at what was out there, what I found is that it's overwhelmingly expensive, especially more than anything when you get into the different types of fittings that are offered for the end. I've looked at a few different things. I've looked at some of the more finished systems, which I love the look of, but they're ridiculously expensive. I mean, $300, $400, $500 by the time you're done. You take this one for example, and this is literally $41 for a set to do one cable, and you're looking typically running 10 to 12 cables for a railing. I mean, the end result looks really good, but again, really expensive. I also watched a video online where somebody did this, and a couple problems with this. One, it's still not that inexpensive. When you start looking at these lag eye bolts, as well as the turnbuckles, it gets pretty expensive. Some of these eye bolts alone were $2 to $3 a piece. And by the time you put this all together, one, I don't necessarily love the look of it, and two, is really not that inexpensive. I did run across this one on Amazon, which as far as finished systems go, I think actually looks pretty sharp. In hindsight, I really didn't see this one until after I got my project done, and this one would have sparked my interest. Don't totally love the look of it, but it's not bad. I think it is pretty sharp and pretty inexpensive, although honestly by the time I was done, it's still more expensive than the solution I kind of came up with. Basically, the materials I bought for it, those are the carriage bolts, 3/8 by 8 inch. I needed them a little bit longer just because of how thick my posts are. And then some 3/8 stainless steel washers, 3/8 stainless steel nuts. And then you can see what's left. I've got one more to put in, so I really just have one extra. And then I actually had a couple that I ruined. One, I didn't get straight in on it and blew it out the side, and the other one, I broke off a drill inside of that one. So, not a perfect system, but it was just way less expensive. I think it was about maybe $7 for each one of these. So, and actually, no, this was about $5, I think, for the washers, about $7 for the bolts. There's 4 in a package. And then these, I accidentally bought a bigger bag. I didn't realize they had smaller bags of these, so I have way too many of these, but they're same thing. I think it was like $6 to $7 for the box or the bag of nuts. So it was super inexpensive build. If this is the first step of just cutting the head off. So the next thing we're going to do is just take a little off of kind of that leftover burr. Just kind of chamfer a little bit and smooth it off, get it ready to drill it out. There we go. Okay. The last step we're going to do is just drill the 1/8 inch hole that's going down the center. So I've got all of these done and chamfered, and now I just got to drill the hole through them. All right, so just going to drop it in the vise. I'm only going to be using the end part of the threads, so if I damage some threads up here, that's not a big deal. All right, I've got my cutting oil, which I'm going to get started with that. I'm going to kind of give it a center. Let's get started. A little more oil, and I have marked with a marker just how far in I want to go. All right, and then really quick, I'm just gonna chamfer that hole just to make it a little easier for the cable to slide in there. And then that one is ready to go on the end of a cable. Okay, so from this point, it gets pretty simple. We've got these all made. I actually made the mistake of drilling these out at 1/8 inch, which with an 1/8 inch cable meant you just could not jam that cable in here. So I had to redo a few of them and then finish the rest of them in 9/64, which opened it up big enough, works smooth. And now just basically tapping these in to get them started. And then from here, we're gonna pop the cable in. Okay, so you can see now 9/64, these slide in pretty smooth. So that's ready to go. And then here's what I did on the crimping tool. So this is pretty, I was having a hard time finding something that would crimp the stainless steel. So what I did is I bought this as Harbor Freight for 21 bucks. So it's a 36 inch bolt cutter. And what I did is I took a die grinder and I just put about a 1/4 inch hole in it. So with a 3/8, that gives me just enough crimp that it bites down pretty good. So now I'm just gonna take that and starting pretty close to the end. Just pop one crimp on there and then back it up just a little bit and do a second one. Just throw a pair of pliers on here. You can just hammer that back in. I've been taking them down just about past the threads. And then that leaves me about, 1/4, 1/2 inch if I've got to tighten these up. I've tightened up a couple at the top, but I stopped just because I know you're supposed to kind of get them all in first before you start tightening, because then, as you tighten this one will start to loosen, so you kind of got to work it on its way down. And then we'll just throw a nut and a washer on the back and this side will be done. Okay. All right, so pretty simple. I'm just gonna take this down to maybe about a 1/4 inch from the end. Watching another YouTuber, they mentioned picking one of these up, totally worth it. Trying to get through these cables with anything else is a nightmare. So this makes a pretty easy cut, and you notice that you get a really clean end that goes right in here with no issues. And then I'm just gonna crimp that one down. All right, so you can see it's actually pretty smooth. I'm not quite done. I've got one more cable to put in, and I haven't really tightened them all up yet, but it came out pretty smooth. I've got to zip off the backs of the bolts, so those are clean and even. And I figured what I'd do is, this is the side that tends to get a little more traffic, so I'm gonna probably take some time and line those up nice and straight, and then I'll use the other side to kind of just balance out the tension. So you can see I got one more cable to do, and this is an older deck, and the poles are not super straight. So I did my best to make the cables look clean, but the end product was pretty good. And I'll have to come up with a total for everything I've spent. But even buying that tool to do the crimping, it worked pretty smooth.